What's up, and welcome to the Nothing But Net Worth podcast, where we have conversations with prominent coaches, athletic directors, and NIL athletes assessing critical topics around financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. My name is Hassan Thomas, former student athlete and current promoter of all things financial wellness. And today, we have former women's basketball player at Southern Arkansas University, and we have the Senior Associate AD and SWA at Alabama State University, Miss Genese Lavalais. How are you? How are you, superstar?
I am well. Thank you for having me on.
You know it. We're going to have a great time here today. And normally, how we like to start off our show, we started off with a segment called the Financial Coin Toss. So I'm going to ask you a few either or questions just to see where your head's at, all right?
Okay.
When I go to these high schools and colleges and speak to these student athletes, I like to ask them, would you rather work a job that you love that makes not a lot of money, or would you rather work a job that you hate making tons of money? Which side
Ooh.
would you lean on more?
Growing up in this field, I used to have a little saying that I always kept near to me, and that was, no matter the pay, your hard work will pay off someday. And so I think it's important for you to have a career that you absolutely love. And sometimes, it doesn't even feel like work whenever that whenever you're into it. But as I get older, that mindset is shifting. I want to be paid for my expertise. I put in a lot of work. And so, I feel like, we're a walking brand. And so I feel like everything that I've learned, I need to pour into somebody else, and I need to get paid for it.
I love it. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Your value is in exchange for currency, for revenue. You know what I mean? You've put in the work, you have the experience, you're the expert in your field, you're the senior AD, SWA, SWV for a reason. But seriously though, you've put in the work, you have the experience, you have the value, and you should be paid for it. And that's kind of the thing when you starting off, have your first couple jobs. Yeah, you won't be paid as a high salary, as a high senior, ranking advisor or director. But as you put in that work, you get that experience, you get that value, and you're able to solve problems and show that you have kind of that track record. You will get paid more, right?
Right.
100%. And I feel like, every athlete, every entrepreneur, and as yourself, as you played basketball, they have that turning point in their life where they're like, okay, I can go to the next level, or that pro life may not be for me. I need to find another career path. So for you personally, kind of take us back to that defining moment in your life that put you on the path to help athletes in the way that you do today.
I started helping out at a community college, and everything I learned at LSU, I took it there, and because they were starting up a women's and men's basketball program there, and so I kept continue on working and networking, and my best friend, she said, I know someone who can probably help you, and so I talked to that person. That person put me in contact with someone else who was an athletic director, and so we built a relationship on the phone for maybe a year or so. And
before y'all even met in person.
Before we even met in person, like actually,
wow.
He was the person who, and his name is Sterling Stewart Jr. He's a senior associate at Morgan State right now, but he was the first person who actually hired me at Alabama State as an academic advisor. But through our conversations, that time when we had never met, I would often go back and forth. I don't want to be in athletics. I do want to be in athletics. It was just because it was so hard for me to get into athletics. And so, after I had graduated, and this is why I tell students also, I'm a first generation student. So after I graduated, I thought that life was great because I had a bachelor's degree. But what I
Mm-hmm.
found out is that I needed more education, more experience. And so I was like, man, it still hasn't ended. So I
Yeah.
did all that, and then I finally got my first paid position as an academic advisor for 4 different sports.
Wow. So through all that, from your time, from your experience and, working your way up, what has been some of the biggest issues that you've seen athletes face, pretty much on the daily?
I would say that a lot of times, of course, I've only worked at HBCU, so we have a lot of first generation students. Is that transition to college, and
Mm,
so I don't let up any slack on them because I am a first generation student as well. There's a lot of things that I didn't know that I had to get. So
yeah.
I'm holding them accountable, and I don't let up on them because I know that they can do it. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's changing their mindset. I was at an institution where I made them take 19 hours. Now some people may not agree with that.
Ooh, the student athletes?
Oh yeah, but they did. But you know what? Because
Uh-huh.
I said, you know, if we encourage them to and set the standard high, they are going to reach for the ladder. And so they
Mm,
they do. They did. And so I remember the NCAA when we had a grant, and she was like, "Do you realize that your students are averaging like 17 hours a semester?" I said, "Huh?" And and so
mm-hmm.
and they were passing. And then I had an academic advisor who had
Yeah.
worked with me at a previous institution, and he came over to the institution I was working at, and he's a big football player. He played in the SEC, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like he said, Genese, you realize the football players are taking 19 hours in the fall? I said they'll get it.
Oh, Lord.
So high expectations and
Uh-huh.
just changing the mindset. So it's
That's
a lot of
huge.
different things that I try to help them with. And so if I feel like that's one of the things that they struggle with the most, is
Mm-hmm.
just trying to transition into college, and then understanding that, hey, yes, you may be the first person to graduate, but you
Yeah,
can do it.
for sure. You did it, so they could do it too, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. So I kind of want to, pick your brain. Do you believe with now the NIL, the opportunities to make money off their name, image, and likeness, where is the balance now between student, athlete, and then now with NIL, entrepreneur, influencer? Like, where is all that balance fit?
Well, you see a lot of student athletes who's really capitalizing and doing some great things. We had
Mm-hmm.
someone speak to our student athletes about financial literacy, and her name is Taryn Bushrod. She did a very good segment on our financial literacy, which was very digestible to our student athletes, and talked about some students who are leveraging NIL in the correct manner, talking to, so her the name of her the title of her presentation was, are you dating, are you single, are you having a one night stand with your money? And so she gave different scenarios, and so the students were able to relate to it. But she talked about this one young man from Norfolk State University. I wanted to go look him up because she says he's doing it the right way, and
Mm-hmm.
he's leveraging all of his deals for NIL. And I just think that some of our student athletes, they have to learn from people like that,
Gotcha.
and his take from what she talked to the students about is that you can get an NIL deal even if you're sitting on the bench. It's how you
Facts.
market yourself, and so if the
Mm-hmm.
students they're in a really good space right now where they can make
Yeah.
money off of name, images, and likeness. And so you mentioned a couple of ones, Influxer and Icon, and we give all those opportunities to our students so that they
Oh
can
wow.
market themselves and brand themselves. So Influxer, they can sell the merch,
Mm-hmm.
so we're trying to teach them. So we've had several this semester. We've had at least 3 presentations on financial literacy so that they could really understand that even if you don't make it, you still can find ways right now to
Yeah.
save money, to make money, and to keep your money once you leave here.
100%, 100%. So it really does sound like you're a proponent. The school is a proponent of kind of pushing and encouraging the students to build their personal brand, build their personal business while they're still in school, right?
Yes, yes, Dr.
And have
Cable, my
go
long
ahead.
title, Dr. Cable, he's our athletics director, and he changed our titles to the student athlete experience because he wants to make sure that the student athletes have a memorable experience here at Alabama
Mm,
State, and that also they leave here, they become ambassadors, and they leave here with the tools that's needed for them to be, successful for the 4 years that they're here at
yeah,
Alabama State and for the next 40 years of their life.
come on now, come on. So I want to kind of just get your thoughts and opinion. Like, have you noticed that is have you noticed like any change, or has it been tough for any students to now, the students that are participating in NIL, has there been any change? Because like you said, you got them taking 19 hours of credit semester, then you got the student athlete 4 hours in academic practice, and then you're now adding on entrepreneur, influencer, brand developer. Have you noticed, just any changes in the student athletes? Because what this is the year two, year three of NIL, so it's still pretty new. So have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, our student athletes, they want to get paid. So
Mm-hmm.
they work to do so. And so that's one of the things when students are coming on recruiting visits, that's the topic that they want to hear about. And
Really?
so we have they have access to it. So it's all about what they want to do and how they want to
Gotcha.
do those because the tools and the resources are here for them to be successful. And so
Mm-hmm.
we see a lot of student athletes, doing content creation.
Okay.
They, on their social medias, really, building up their brand so that they can sell their merchandise, through the influxer and icon source and whatever else. We've had a few students to land commercial deals with
Wow. Okay.
and Whataburger and in just different restaurants. So yeah, so they're taking it seriously. They're capitalizing on it, and so
Uh-huh.
it's really great to see.
You just took me back with that Whataburger. I'm out here in Florida, and we ain't got Whataburger out here. So like I told you, I'm from Houston, and that's where Whataburger originally originated.
I just
So I'm
started
like,
eating burger, and it's actually pretty good.
man. Oh, so like in your opinion, what's your overall thoughts on NIL? Has it been positive? Has it helped college athletics? Does it hurt college athletics? Pros and cons. Kind of give us your just overall thoughts on NIL.
Well, I think it allows the student athletes to profit from their own brands and their endorsements and
Mm-hmm.
other opportunities while maintaining their amateur status. So it's a positive step towards fairness and equity for athletes and who bring the revenue to the universities and to our universities and the NCAA. So I think that is a
Mm-hmm.
positive step.
Got
The
you. Got
I guess the con would be that if they're not utilizing it correctly, then it is not going to work.
you. Mm-hmm.
If they don't really put the work in, and really capitalize on NIL opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, kind of not managing that money properly, not paying the taxes on it. And because even when I was doing my research on you, just one of the many things that I admire about you already was kind of like your focus on life skills.
Mhm.
So I wanted to ask, do you think financial literacy, financial education falls under life skills? And if so, how important is it to make sure that they get that financial education?
Absolutely. It does fall under life skills. And so again, we've had 3 presentations, and we still have people who want to do presentations for us. And I'm like, hold on, let me breathe right quick because we've had 3 of them this year. I think that that's next for our student athletes to understand how to make their money grow for them. Because let's be
Mhm.
real and let's be honest, we don't get that teaching at a young age in our house in our households
Yeah.
because our parents are working 2 or 3 jobs. Some of us.
Mhm.
And so it's very important that they learn about how to some students don't even know how to write a check.
Yep.
So how to write a check that's becoming obsolete. Um, but how to, what are IRAs, 401ks, that's
Yep.
next for our students because they have to understand how to do that, how to, create a budget for when they leave and
Mhm.
how to purchase a home. That was something that my parents, they were homeowners, but they didn't talk to me about what steps to go through whenever I was, trying to get my own home. So, those type of skills are very important for our students to leave here learning. And so we want to make sure that they learn those type of skill sets here so that they can
Mhm.
go out and be successful.
100%. And I really believe it all starts with that, foundation of financial education because whether they're and my I really, for lack of better words, hate when people say financial education is only for business majors. I'm like the
Yeah,
the chemistry major, the design major, all these other different majors, they're either going to get out and one start their own business or they're going to work for somebody else's business. And in both of those scenarios, they're making money. So they need to be taught before they leave your institution how to manage that money that they're going to make. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And I have a couple more questions for you, Miss Genese. I want to know if we had a scenario and we made you the NCAA president, what would you do to improve NIL and college athletics right now?
If I were the NCAA president, hmm, I think that I would focus on creating a clear guidelines and regulations to ensure
Mm-hmm.
fairness and transparency in the NIL space. This will involve working closely with, just the universities, the athletes, and sponsors. It's very important to continue to get information about um, what the student athletes want to, what they want to see, and they need to be very informed about, what that's going to mean. So I would say just creating clear guidelines and
Mm-hmm.
educating our student athletes every chance that we could get because it's very important that they understand what decisions are being made, how it's going to
Mm-hmm.
impact.
100%. Knowing because it's one thing to tell student athletes something, but it's another thing to show them and kind of give them the clear picture. Hey, if you do this, this is what you can get as far as that pro. But also, if you don't do it, this is what will happen as far as something negative as far as something like a big con of not doing that responsible financial action. So
Absolutely.
I'm in a huge agreement with you there. And then also give us kind of your final takeaway for the young folks listening to this here today.
So a
A hundred
takeaway would
percent.
be just to
Yeah, that
continue to work
hard work.
hard at everything that you do, and then also continue to seek out mentors. That was something that I didn't do early on in my career. I mean, I networked, but I didn't really seek out mentors, and that's why I decided to write my dissertation on mentorship. And so, but I would say seek out mentors, network, step outside the comfort zone, and continue to get better every day. And so my one of my mottos is to empower students, develop leaders, and to grow champions. And so that speaks to not only student athletes but everyone. We need to empower people to do what it is that they can do. We want to develop leaders. Those little those different tasks and those skill sets we can always develop them, and of course we want them to be champions in the end.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Empower students, grow champions, and develop leaders. That is how we're going to move forward with this interview, with our lives. take some of these gems that Genese dropped here today, and I promise you, if you implement them now, there will be large results over time. So again, thank you so much, Miss Genese. You killed this.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, yes. And for my listeners, y'all already know, if you're looking to be educated, motivated, and inspired to not only stay in the game, but to change it, the Nothing But Net Worth podcast is for you. See you next week.